Hi everybody, welcome to Module 4.2. We're going to talk about charts, spark lines, data bars, and a whole bunch of other things. And if you take a look at page 218 and 219, you can see a few examples of the kind of charts that we'll be putting together. And I just wanted to show the technique on page 220 for number 2 because it's a little tricky. So what we want to do is we want to create a chart with projected cash flow, and all we really need is the years. So basically these ones right here. Okay, and then we want to have cash flow, the line right at the bottom. And we're not trying to graph everything else, only those two lines. So to do that, the cell of the text says to select a non-adjacent range. And I'm going to show you how to do that. First, I'm going to click here in A4 and drag across to K4. And you know how to do that. But then I'm going to scroll down and press Control. And then while pressing Control, I'm going to grab these also. Okay, so now you'll see I have both ranges selected. That's how you select a non-adjacent range. I'll go to Insert Recommended Charts, and they say pick the second one, which you could see in figure 4.22 on page 221. Okay, so I'm going to press OK, and then this is our chart. You'll notice that down here we don't have a Charts tab like they do. So we're just going to go ahead and make a chart tab like this, and then we're going to grab our chart, and I'll just go cut and then paste it into here. Now, I have a few options. I could paste it using destination theme, keep source formatting, or put it as a picture. This is very important because if I put it as a picture, it's basically going to save it as a graphic on the new sheet, which is okay if I want to move it, let's say, to Word and send it out to people and not have it connected to the underlying data. But if I update the numbers on the other sheet, I want this to update too. And that's why I would just do it as source formatting. So you can see like I could select individual parts, change the title and so on. Whereas if I posted it as a picture, I wouldn't be able to. It would just be stuck as an image just like that. Okay, and now let's do the exact same thing, but for revenue and expenses, like you could see on page 222 and 223. So I'll do the same thing. I'll go in here, I'll make a selection and grab the headers, and then I'm going to press Control and then drag to the side to make my second selection, and I'll press Control again and grab total expenses. So right now I'm comparing these three things. Okay, when I go into Insert Recommended Charts, I'm now going to have something similar to what's in figure 4.23, and let's just grab that and put it onto our charts page. Okay, so there's a number of ways to get to it, but if you want to see the chart axis box like you see on page 223, you click on chart options. I'm going to go into more options, and here's the chart axes where I could change the different looks, the style. I could change what the tick marks look like, what the labels are, and so on, right? And the axes on the top and the bottom. So right now it's pulling data from these two lines and it's comparing them by this series. As we talked about before, I could also go to where it says select data, and I'm able to change what exactly I'm looking for. What came out of this normally is the best guess that Excel's making of what data I'm interested in analyzing, essentially revenue and expenses by year. I could reverse the data and look at it the other way, right? Total revenue and total expenses. It makes less sense, but each one of these represents a year. So this would be year one versus year one. But this way, I could actually see them in comparison to each other. So it just depends what I'm trying to do. So depending on how big the chart is and depending on what the options are, there's a lot of ways that we could format it. Like if you see on page 224, 225, I could put in axes titles. I could put in data labels, which is sometimes really useful to see what the numbers are. But in this case, because the graphic's really small, they all sort of get bunched up over each other. I could put a data table at the bottom. Again, it's all the numbers get cut off, so it's hard to see. But if the table was bigger or the font was smaller, I may be able to actually see what's in the box and understand. If we're dealing with data that has a margin of error, then we would use error bars. We could have different types of grids behind, and we could also have a trend line showing the trend. Okay, in this case, I'm picking total revenue, and this will overlay total revenue trend. based on a linear progression between these numbers, which is not always accurate, right? Okay, there's many other options. Let's look up at the top. We can go under Design to select a different design, and we could also, as we talked about before, add elements to it like callouts, labels. We could put in a data table. This is just basically all the things we looked at before, just another way to get at them. Okay, we could also go into Format, and we could press Format Selection, and in here we could have, let's say, like gradient fill, and we could use this to create a colored background. We could also press solid fill and get a solid background, and so on. So it just really depends on what our approach is, what we're trying to do. I think the most important thing with these kind of charts is making them not very busy, so we are able to actually read what's going on, because right now I have no clue what these numbers are saying. So I would want to scale this back a few and get to something a little more readable so it makes sense to the user to illustrate our point, which is really the point of the chart, right? It's supposed to, like something like this, more readable, makes sense, you know, still not the best, but I could explore the different designs and see if there's anything else that would potentially make sense in this case. I would recommend take a look at the data label callout example on page 227 and see how we put that in, because that could also really help explain the data. Okay, so in this example, you could see that I added the data callout, and I basically just followed the instructions on page 226. I added a whole bunch of layout callouts, and I basically erased them all except for the last one. But I could certainly do this a number of different ways, depending on, you know, maybe I could have a beginning, a middle, and an end instead of having a point for every year. It just really depends on what I'm trying to show. Okay, and here's an example of what's happening on page 228 to 29. Basically, I took the chart and I right-clicked and went down here to where it says Format Chart Area, and I just chose Gradient Fill. So I didn't fill in the entire chart, which would include the table part. I only picked, the plot area. This is this plot area inside, and our chart area is the outside. So I just formatted the chart area, but you can see I also added a shadow and a bunch of different options, and I just did that under Format, and I pressed Shape Outline, I picked blue, and then I picked Shape Effects, I pressed Shadow, and then I chose the blue box over here. Right, so there's a lot of different options on how we can format the data to present it in a way that communicates our message best. Okay, let's see if I can get back to gradient fill. There we go. Okay, so it really just depends on how you put that together. Let's keep on rocking. Okay, so now let's take a look at a combination chart. Okay, so basically we're going to go to A4 to K5, which is this, right? And then we're also going to do A26 to K26. So that would be net income. Okay, so I'll press Control and grab those two. And then it says Insert Recommended Tabs. So I'm basically just following exactly on page 230. I go to Recommended Charts, and we are going to go down to All Charts, Combo. There we go. And we want this one. Alright, I figured out why that didn't work. So basically, I started at A4, but I have to end at K25, which is on the next line. Right, K25 is down here. And then I also have to add A26 to K26. So let's go down here. I'm going to hit Control and grab these guys too. So now I have 3 pieces of data, and this will let me make the chart that we're looking for. So I go to Combo. Now it works. Okay. So it's going to say what for the packs produced in this old series, click on Chart Type arrow and press Line. Alright. Alright, so basically I picked the 4th one. I went down here and I used Chart Type Line and I checked Secondary Axis. And then I pressed net income, and I picked where it said here cluster column, and that was primary. I pressed OK, and this is the chart that we got. Now, basically, what we're looking at is two charts that are overlaid, right? So, oh, sorry about that. So one of them is this line here, packs produced and sold, and that's our blue line. And the other one is, I believe, net income, right? That would be this line right here on A26. So what we're looking at is basically the more packs we produced and sold, eventually our net income starts going up. And we can start to look what the connection is between those two things. So now you should be able to make a combo chart, which you could see on page 30 to page 233. All right, now we've done something similar to this before when we set up our conditional formatting, and let's take a look. So basically, I have a list of years and a list of gross income, and I want to make a chart. So I'm going to just grab the whole box, and we'll tell Excel, have at it, make me a chart. So I'm just going to follow the instructions exactly on page 235. So it says highlight everything, go to Insert. We're going to go to Recommended, and I'm going to go to line charts. I'm going to pick a line chart. Press OK, and it puts it in. And I have no idea what this means. You can see this in figure 433 on page 235. Now, if you look at the legend, it says year is the blue, and gross income is the orange line. Now, the problem is that it's looking at year in this series as if they were numbers. Like, if you look at what 2017, where it falls on the line between 0 and 200,000, it's somewhere right near the bottom, right? So it's looking at these as numbers, which is not what we want. Now, if you remember, we have that option to right-click and go to where it says Select Data. Okay, and now let's look what we have. So we have the legend entries series is year and gross income. And then the numbers, so like number 1, 2, 3, 4, are put on the side, which is not what we want. Now, you might be saying, all right, so let's just switch it. That does not work either, right? Now we're getting year gross income, and that doesn't make sense. So what do we have to do? We need to tell Excel what we are trying to put as axis labels and what we have as data. So I'm going to go up here and press Edit, and I'm going to say our labels are these guys, right? These are the years, and we'll press OK. Now, we don't want years as a number, so I'm going to uncheck that, or I can just press Remove. Okay? Now, when we press OK, it looks like the chart on page 4. Hang on 1 second. There we go. Now, when we look at it, it looks like the chart. It almost looks like the chart. Let's try that again. Grab the label range. Press OK. All our years are selected. Uncheck here. Press OK. There we go. Okay, so now it looks like 435 on page 237, right? So we have the years going across the bottom, and that's just telling us the time scale. And then on the other axis, we have our gross income line, which is going up according to our numbers. Okay, so this is comparing the two, and that's how we would format the graph. Often when you make a graph, it may not immediately make sense, and it may require a little bit of tweaking to make sure it does what you want it to do, right? So if there's a problem, you have to really consider, like, is this the best way to present your data? Because it may not be clear to what you're trying to tell the reader. Okay, so given what we just covered with the line chart, take a crack at other chart types like a histogram, which you could do on page 238 and 239. Also a Pareto chart, which is on page 240, 241. We looked a little bit before at tree map charts. You could try that also, figure 440 on 241, and other ones like sunburst, waterfall, etc. So that brings us up to page 243, and we are going to play around with sparklines. Really try to experiment with a few different kinds of charts and see what comes up, because there are many, many different options. There's like really a ton of different ways that you can use sparklines to make your presentations interesting. Okay, so let's continue with sparklines. There's 3 different types, which you could see on figure 4.42 at the bottom of page 243. And we are going to throw in a column sparkline using the example on page 245. And it's actually really, really easy to do. So right now, I am on the financial summary page, and we want to grab information from the projected production page. I'm going to just move this over so it's right next to it. Okay, so basically we want to take all this information for school, travel, hiking, sport, external frame, internal frame, and put them into these. Now, a sparkline is basically a tiny little graph. So it doesn't have any other titles. It doesn't have an axis. It's just like little tiny dots like you could see in the picture, which will help us see what's going on. Look at a trend. So what I'm going to do is highlight these boxes from C5 to C10. I'm going to click on Insert, and then you'll notice here I have the sparkline group. I'm going to follow the textbook exactly. I'm going to press on Column, and it's going to say, where is the data going to come from that you want? Now, we don't have any data really here that shows a trend, so I'm going to press here, and I'm going to tell it, I'm going to go to Projected Production and grab all these. And you'll notice that they correspond with our same categories, and I'll hit Enter and press OK. Okay, so here we go. So it's basically going to, for projected production for schools, it's going to go and take 500, 750, and all these numbers right here, and it's going to look at the trend over time, right? Now, we end up with 6,000, which is our final number here, but we can't graph that going backwards based on all these numbers. Okay, so this is an easy way to throw sparklines in. And once we have sparklines, you could also go here and edit the group, edit a single one, ungroup them. Right now, because I selected all of them at one time, I put them together as a group. You could also clear them or clear all of them, right? Here I cleared one, and I could go into, oh, sorry about that. There we go. I could go in here, sparklines, and press clear the group, and delete them, right? So there's a lot of different options on how we could put sparklines in, what we can make them look like, and let's try it with a line as well. So I'll grab these, hit Enter, press OK. Okay, and here I just get a general idea of what the trend is. We could also format them and make them appear differently. You can see on page 245, 246. We could also do them with color and so on, right? So there's a lot of different options for how we're going to format sparklines. Okay, now we briefly touched on this before, but we're going to zip ahead to data bars, which are super simple. We just want to know visually which are the biggest numbers, and we could do that by clicking on our quick format and pressing data bars. Right away, it's going to pop up and show us which numbers are the biggest in our series. We could also do the same thing, highlight everything, go into conditional formatting, data bars, and choose a different style, either with a gradient, like part blue, part white, or we could pick a solid fill, or we could add more rules and pick and customize what they look like, what the border is, what the fill is, and so on, right? So we have a lot of control over what values get formatting applied and how we could use data bars to make our data stand out and make it easily apparent. And that brings us to the end of 4.2. So again, I hope you have a lot of fun playing around with data bars and sparklines and using this type of thing to show us, to show your data in a way that will make it easy to understand and hopefully interesting and fun for the people who are using it. Thank you.